Chapter 8. The pond was covered with blue lotus. The steps were mantled with moss and crumbling. On the bank stood a small shrine supported on the stone pillars with a low roof of granite slabs blackened by weather, time, and the oven smoke of wayfarers. Right. Now, chapter 8 starts with describing this place that belongs to Periadorai, right, the master. So, anyway, this pond, there was a pond here. The pond was covered with blue lotus, the lotus flower, right? Uh, and the steps were mantled. Mantle means covered. Mantling means covering, right? Mantle. The steps were covered with moss, moss, that slippery substance, right? Uh, that just accumulate on stones, right? Or just that we say like this idiom, the rolling stone gather no moss, and the stones are not gathering. The moss covers, right? Okay, now it's like covered with moss and it's crumbling and things like that, right? And on the bank, on the river bank, stood a small shrine. A shrine where shrine is something where you worship, right? It's a kind of a small structure, a small temple-like thing, a small shrine, supported on stone pillars. And this shrine, this sacred place, was supported, means was standing on four pillars. Pillars are columns, right? Columns of stone pillars. I mean, that's very, very strongly built, very strong. Stone pillars, four pillars, right? Supported on a stone pillars, right? This shrine with a low roof of granite, and the roof of this shrine is granite. It's a kind of a stone. Again, it's a stone structure, it seems, right? A granite and slabs and blackened by weather. And this shrine has been here for so many times, so long, right? uh, it was blackened, it was darked by weather, time, and oven smoke by wayfarers. Who are wayfarers? Underline if you don't know wayfarers. Write down the meaning. A pedestrian who walks from place to place, travelers are called wayfarers, right? So, people who are passing this place have stopped somewhere near the shrine and maybe have cooked, right? And people, when they find a place just to cook, when they are traveling, they stop down and cook, right? So they may find this place kind of interesting place just to stop and cook. So they have cooked, and what has happened by time, everything's blackened. The soot is OOT soot, this kind of powdery substance, like again, delicate, right? So it's like maybe those things are just round, right? Over the little building loomed banyan, people, mango trees, and beyond them stretched away a group of casuarina, the wind blowing through their leaves, creating a continuous murmur as of sea waves. I mean, like this place has a lot of trees, right? Banyan, people, mango trees, casuarina, and when the wind blowing, can you imagine like the wind is going through this uh, leaves, that has this rustle, that has this soothing kind of a blowing through these leaves, creating a continuous murmur. Murmur means kind of whisper, as of sea waves, right? As if you are going to a beach. When you go to the beach, you hear the waves, right? The sea waves, the hushing sound of sea waves. Same way, when you are staying here, you can see this, you can hear this. Can you imagine these auditory images, right? It's like rustling, the leaves are murmuring, the wind is blowing, right? It's just a nice place to stay, right? The surroundings were covered with vegetation. Vegetation means what? Vegetation means all plant life is called vegetations, right? Yeah, so I think everything is covered in vegetation, plant life. There's a lot of trees around, right? It's green, a lot of green is around, right? Vegetation of every type. What are those? What are the vegetation here? We are talking about brambles, thorn bushes, lantana, and oleander, and intertwined and choked each other. I mean, like these bushes and thorn bushes means some bushes that have thorns in it, right? The sharp thorns, and they were intertwined. Intertwined means like intertwined, something like that. They were just twining. They were just tangling around each other, intertwined, and choked each other as if choking means what? This means like choking means triangling. In real English, I mean like in dictionary English, choking means someone That's choking, right? Strangling you. If someone is pressing your neck is called choking. Now here, what the idea is means like this bushes are intertangling, kind of intertwined, right? Entangled, as if they are choking each other, right? As if they are like pressing each other tightly. That's the idea, right? They choked each other. I mean, like as if hindering the growth, right? The sun glittered in the pond surface. Now you can see in the surface of the pond, right, in this particular place. uh, the sun glitters, reflects. The sun is reflected on the water, right, on surface. And the bearded man who had led Jagan to these spots remained brooding, watching some birds dive into the water. And now we find suddenly the bearded man has ushered, or bearded man has brought Jagan to this particular place. Jagan has come to this place, in other words, right? So in the previous chapter, we found that Jagan was interested. Now we find Jagan is here, actually, physically present in this location, right? So as a matter of fact, we see the visual imagery, like and the auditory imagery, right? And how interesting this place is, how kind of a in its own way fascinating, intriguing, kind of a fantastic place this is, right? It's a kind of a change for Jagan, and here Jagan is, right? And now we find this bearded man is kind of brooding, kind of thinking in a kind of a thinking mode, just looking and just seeing some birds dive into the water, all right, just to catch its prey. So quiet everywhere, Jagan remarked, deciding to puncture the oppressive silence. I mean, this place is silent, it's so silent, called nonchalant, tranquil, kind of a placid place, right? So Jagan felt like everywhere is silent because he's used to the busy life, right? Now here there's nothing like that. So it's so calm. He says like so quiet everywhere. Jagan remarked, decided to puncture means, puncturing is making holes, right? Making a hole in this oppressive silence. In other words, just to break the silence, right? The other shook his head. Yeah, the other shook his head, right? Not as it used to be. Too many buses on the highway. Ever since that project in the hills, his voice trailed away. Right. I mean, like, yeah, now it's not quiet as it used to be in the old days, said the bearded man. Not as it used to be. I mean, in the old days, when his master was here, I mean, it's even quieter than this. Nowadays, it's not even quiet, right? Too many buses on the highway. Can you hear, right? If you really hear, the bus sounds can be vaguely heard from this place. Uh, they are not strong, but still bus sounds are there. Ever since that project in the hills, there was a project in the hills. Since then, buses were traveling, and I mean, like this is little noisy. And his voice trailed away means his voice kind of echoed while he was saying this. In those days, he said, in old days, the bearded man said, when I lived here with my master, you could not meet a soul unless you walked all the way to Nallappa Grove and crossed into the town. In those days, people did not go up to the mountain as much as they do now. Robbers hid themselves in the jungles, and the tigers and elephants roamed to the foothills. He seemed depressed as the thought of their giving place to highway buses. I mean, like, so now the man explains the tranquility of this place, the silence of this place, right? In old days, when I was living here, he says, like, I was living here in this place with my master, right? You could not meet a soul. Like, not a single person, not even a person, not even a soul, right? You can't meet here until you go up to the Nallappa Grove. I know it's a groove. What is a groove? Groove is a place where you have many trees. In Sinhala, we call it Ruppawa කියලා කියන්නේ මේකට. We have these coconut grooves. Pol Ruppawa කියලා වචනේ අහලා තියෙනවා. Groove means that it's not coconut, but still it's a Nallappa Grove, right? Where these trees are here. And crossing to the town, I mean, like till we reach the town, there's no people here. And in those days, people did not get up to the mountain. I mean, like go to the mountain. I mean, in old days, people never came to these mountain sides, right? Why? Because robbers hid themselves in the jungle. People have done robberies, right? Criminals who was just evading or just running from the law were hiding in these places, right? So people didn't come. Can you remember, if you know the story of Madoldu, right? Even a robber hid in Madoldu, right? Because people are not traveling. That's why in the night you see this, lights and everything, right? Just like people thought it was a ghost. So the idea was people are scared. People didn't travel to that place. In that same way, right? Now it's not like that, but still the same idea is here. Some people hide when they have done robberies in old days, right? They want to escape. They found kind of these kind of place and hide. Now, in those days, we didn't have drones or helicopters just to go and just get an aerial view. Nothing like that existed, right? Or police dogs, they came recently. They were included recently into the police armory. So now that's why thieves are hiding easily in these places slowly. So people are scared just to visit. So no one was visiting, right? But they still live. But if thieves come here, there's nothing to steal as well, right? Only statues and everything. So thieves are not coming to this place, right? So they were living side by side. I mean, they were not scared, right? That's the idea. He seemed depressed at the thought. I mean, like the bearded man seemed little bit sad or little bit crestfallen, little bit upset about the feeling that giving the place to highway buses, that buses are traveling somewhere around. So some noise is heard, right? Why did you choose to live here? Jagan asked, like, why? What makes you live here in the first place? Where else could one live? Where is the best place to live? Asked the bearded man. We need all those stones. I mean, see around. Don't you see stones? Just to do the carving, just to do the sculpture, we need stones. So where else in Malgudi do we can find stones other than this place, right? So we have no option but to where is that's the idea. Where else could we live, right? He pointed through the thickets. Thickets are kind of dense shrubs, right? Where dense plants are grown. Thickets, අපි කියන්නේ කඳුරු වගේ it's like bushes and everything is grown here in a thicket, right? It's thick. That's why we call thickets. So you see those, no, you see the nose of Mempi. Can you see the top of the Mempi hills from here? He shows, right? For softer panel work, that stone is excellent. I like for softer kind of sculpture panel work, that stone in the Mempi is somewhere around there, right? Is excellent, right? For images of inner sanctum, uh, one has to cut the stone at the belly of the hill further up, though it is difficult to hew and there are more breakings than in other proportions. There you go. So now the bearded man is explaining Jagan, right? For softer sculpture work, panel work, this stone is excellent. For the images of inner sanctum, what is sanctum? Underline if you don't know sanctum. A sacred place is called a sanctum, a sacred place, a holy place, a place of inviolable kind of a privacy is a sanctum, right? It's kind of a very privately, holy, sacred kind of a place, right? It's a sanctum. So the image of the inner sanctum, I mean, like when you see these godly images, you get a kind of a peaceful inner sanctum. අපි කියන්නේ අයව දකිනකොට අපේ හදවත් වලට භක්තියක් හදවත් වලට නිසසල බවක් something like that, right? Inner sanctum, one has to cut the stones at the belly of the hill further up. I mean, like we have to go and find those stones in the belly of the hill. I mean, in the center part of the hill, we find those stones those days, right? Just to do the sculptures. Though it is difficult to hew, and hewing means, write down if you don't know, hew means strike with axe, cut down. Even to break stones, you have to use some tools, right? Some kind of tools. So that's how you, because you can't, in those days, they didn't use this dynamite or things like that, right? They did it with axes, right? I mean, like, imagine the sculpture of Aukana. It's a stone sculpture, entirely done in stone. How did he do it? They were using chisels and kind of other tools, right? Axes, and they were hewing. They didn't use this modern technology like dynamiting or things like that just to break the stone pieces. No, they were cutting, right? They were stone cutting. In other words, hewing means cutting the stone with a kind of axe, right? not the regular X, but special access, right? And there are more breakings than in other portions. And if you notice, in the middle part of the hill, you'll find a lot of breakings than the other part because people have taken out, right, pieces of this chunk of rocks, right? His head seemed to throb with stony problems. I mean, like, it seems like the bearded man had stony problems. I mean, like big problems in his own head, right? Jagan watched him in silent wonder and asked. Jagan observed this man with silent wonder and a kind of silent amazement, very personal, silent amazement. Jagan was observing this person and asked, "What would you do for food? And with one's wife and children in a place like this? I mean, like, how can you manage your food? How can you manage your children and wife in a place like this?" Jagan asked, a little bit confused and bewildered, right? The bearded man made a flourish as if to ward off such petty questions. Bearded man just made a gesture like flourish, right? Just to ward off means just to kind of reject or just not to answer these kind of petty questions like how's your wife, how's your children, how you cook, how you eat, things like that. Those are not important, right? My master never bothered about such a things. There you go. Chenadore says like my master never bothered about or disturbed about those things, right? He never married. I came to him when I was 5 years old. I don't know how many parents were. Sorry, I don't know how. Sorry, I don't know who my parents were. People used to say I was picked up by master on the river step. So, kind of very briefly and very bravely, Chennadoroi introduced himself right as orphan, as a person who left over or just left by his parents. So the master suddenly saw him and just picked up, and since that day he was living with his master, right? I don't know who my parents were, said the man. People used to say I was picked by the master on the river. People say that I was, the master saw me as a baby on the river step and took me, and just since then he just with me. I mean, like, I grew up with him. That's the idea, right? Now this is a big story, right? This is a very kind of a strange story. Jagan wanted to ask. Now listening to this story, Jagan had a doubt, right? Jagan wanted to ask but suppressed the question. He immediately suppressed means he didn't ask the question. He hid the question. He swallowed his own question, right? Suppressed the question. What is his question? Whether he might not have been born by a passing concubine of so-called master who never married. I mean, like Jagan had a kind of a dark question, right? I mean, like is now he was thinking, right? He wanted to ask, but he didn't ask. He swallowed the question. He was thinking, right? Now, can't if this master is not married, can't this Chennadore, this guy bearded man, be this master's own son? I mean, like even the people say he was taken by when he was lying down the river, right? uh, Close to the river. If his master is not married, is this boy born to a concubine? Who's a concubine? Not a regular wife. It's just a passing woman, right? In these places, uh, what you call harems, right? Or just places, you find concubines, uh, passing concubines, right? It's not a regular wife. Imagine something like that, just a random woman, okay? And maybe the master has made love to a random woman, and this random woman concubine got a baby, and maybe that's the baby that master's own son. Even this guy tells a story to me. Maybe that's the real story. Can't that be? Jagan thinks inside his own head, but he didn't ask those things, right? Weird thoughts, right? White bearded man remained thinking of his past. Jagan reflect while white bearded man was thinking about the past and tried to converse the past, like talk about the past. Jagan thought he has the whitest beard and sells the blackest hair dye. Uh, why does he not apply it to his own beard? He asked loud. I mean, like now suddenly Jagan got the idea. All right, see this guy's beard, right? He has a very wide beard. And this guy sells hair dye, black hair dye. So why can't he apply that hair dye to his own beard and look young? Why can't he do that? Jagan thinks right now, right? Uh, Now he asks this question: why does he not apply it to his own beard? Right? I mean, like, why is not he applying this hair dye, black hair dye, into his own beard? He asked aloud, "Who is your business? Sorry, how is your business? How is your dyeing thing, hair dyeing business?" Right? A question that he must have asked a very few minutes whenever there was a pause. I mean, like, Jagan have asked this question few times from this bearded man, right? Few times. Whenever there was a silence, he's asking, like, how's your business? How's your business? Right? I mean, like, because this man doesn't have regular business, right? Just like Jagan. Jagan has a shop. This guy doesn't have a shop. He does services going to people, finding the customers and going to them. He does the service. So it's a kind of a strange thing to Jagan. So maybe that's why Jagan is asking these questions, right? How is your business going on, right? Without a place and things like that. The bearded man replied, nothing to worry about. And the sales tax people have still not come my way yet. Yeah, there you go. I'm like, there's nothing wrong about it. Good, my business is good. And luckily, the sales tax people are not just following him. Why? Because he don't have a place. He don't have a shop. If he had a shop, if he had a salon or something, definitely the sales tax people will come to his place. But here, you don't find something like that, so they don't come here, right? That's the idea. So man is happy in a way, right? That is a real blessing, said Jagan. Oh my God, that's nice. That's a blessing, right? God have helped you, in other words, right? That's a real blessing, said Jagan, remembering the visitations he had to endure, the inspectors and their minions rummaging his desk for days, for day books, ledgers, and vouchers, right? So now Jagan can remember, right? The visitations of these sales tax people, inspectors. Rummaging means going through, like just inspecting and just going through, just pulling out and just pulling the ledgers out, pulling these accounts out, and there are minions. Underline minions if you don't know. It's like the the supporters, the assistants. Right here, the idea would be servile a dependent person. I mean, like assistants, right? Income tax people and their assistants coming to the shop and Jagan shop and pulling the accounts and going through the accounts, ledgers, everything is inspected. In other words, it's a harassment for Jagan, right? And there's another problem, right? Jagan doesn't enter some cash in the ledgers, right? So of course he doesn't like this, right? They can't capture him, but still the income tax people come and visit him, right? Uh, In the end, they accepted these accounts, unaware of the cash that grew from out of our sales at the counter and filled the smaller jug. There you go. Anyway, after all, the inspectors, this income revenue, tax revenue inspectors cannot find out what Jagan was doing. Jagan was smarter than them, right? They were this very trained, educated people who are very well trained to find out how the vendors, how the businessman cheats. Okay, and they are very good at it. They are very well trained at it. That's the purpose they are here. Income tax people are trained just to find out these nasty things, these tricks the business people do. But anyway, Jagan is even smarter than that. That's the idea here. So they can never find out what Jagan do. I mean, like we know from 6 to 7:30, the earnings are not going or entered in a ledger, right? But Jagan has hid it, has done it in a very smart way. Even the income tax people can't find out, so they accept the Jagan's ledgers, Jagan's accounts as the true accounts, as if like they were real accounts, right? And they have no idea about the cash that grew out of our sales. So no one can find this other money that Jagan keeps to himself, right? Without paying taxes. Fill the smaller jug but he could not. He could no more help it than he could the weeds flourishing in his backyards. I mean, even the income tax people came and checked his account. I mean, like Jagan never gave up the idea of having this extra cash that he writes only in his notebooks, right? I mean, like he can't help it as much as the weeds that grow in his backyard. He can get the පිටිපස්සේ වැවෙන වල් ගස් ගලවන්න ගේගන්ට බැරි වගේම I mean like as if they were growing these things, these weeds, right? These unnecessary, unimportant, useless kind of weeds were growing in his backyard, which is a metaphor that Jagan have this same weed in his business. I mean, the weed was this, the money that he doesn't enter in the ledgers, right? So it's a kind of extended kind of a metaphor here, right? Uh, he had a habitual, instinctive, inexplicable uneasiness concerning any tax. We'll highlight this. Very important, right? Here you highlight from he had a habitual, instinctive, inexplicable uneasiness concerning any tax. Highlight this. So it says like Jagan had a very natural, very inborn, kind of instinctive means kind of a natural sense of things. අපි කියන සහජ ඉව කියලා, that's instinctive. Inexplicable means cannot be explained, uneasiness concerning any tax. When when Jagan hear the word tax, he disliked it. He disliked the concept tax. That's it, right? If Gandhi had said somewhere, pay your tax, sales tax uncomplainingly, he would have followed his advice. But if Gandhiji has said somewhere in his teaching, pay your taxes, right? Pay your taxes correctly. I mean, like Jagan would pay his taxes probably, right? He would not be this much struggling with it, right? But Gandhi had made no reference to the sales tax anywhere to Jagan's knowledge. As a matter of fact, Gandhiji has never said anything about income tax in his teaching, right? Right. Some people doesn't incorporate these kind of ideas into their teaching, right? Even they're talking about politics, the day-to-day life, about ideology. For example, like when it comes to beef eating or just meat eating in Buddhism, right? Buddha has never said no, don't eat meat. We know, right? Even Buddha ate meat, right? That was the reason that he got sick, right? This kind of a pork kind of a dish that was made by Chunda Karmara, he consumed it. He didn't say no to it, but that was the ultimate reason that he got sick, and I mean like he just passed away, right? So the same way, Gandhi has never told about tax anywhere in his teaching. So for Jagan, he's not worried about it, right? He kind of cheat with tax, right? So that's the idea here. Uh, the bearded man said, but they are bound to wake up sooner or later when they notice fewer gray hairs around, and chuckled. I mean, like they laughed, saying that, but they are bound to wake up sooner or later. I mean, like they'll immediately want my services when they notice one or two white hair. Some people in the town, right, immediately want me just to come and gray their hair, right? I mean, like turn black their gray hair. Gray hair means white hair. That's the idea. Jagan sees this opportunity to say, anyway, you are in an exception to your own rule. Now, Jagan immediately said, you are an exception to your own rule, right? In other words, you are doing a service, you are doing a job that you don't kind of like it on yourself, right? As if like you are blackening people's hair, you make other people's hair black, but still you have white hair. Why is this? I mean, like it's an exception to your own rule. I mean, like, why don't you make your hair black? Jagan asked, as if like Jagan also have the same exception in life. Aren't you aware of that? I mean, like he's not eating sugar and he's selling other people's sweets. And now he's asking the question in another way, right? From the bearded man, right? We'll see what happens now. I like my white beard and so I keep it, said the bearded man, right? I like it this way. I don't want to change color. I look okay with this, right? This is no compulsion for anyone to blacken his hair. I mean, like, there's no force or there's no one is forcing anyone just to blacken their hair, right? Some, if you want to have, can have their white hair. Some people, as a matter of fact, like to have white hair other than black hair, right? They don't dye their hair. So there is no compulsion for anyone to blacken his hair. I would not have dreamt of blackening people's heads if I had had a chance to work on stone. And now there goes the bearded man says something important. I will not do this job of blackening people's hair or dyeing people's hair if I had a job to do with the stones. I mean, if I was a sculptor, right? I will not do this job. I would not have dreamed of blackening people's heads if I had a chance to work on stone. But you know how these things happen? My master supported me for years. Now, do you know how these things happened to me? Right? How things occurred? My master supported me for years, means my master took care of me for years. How could he not, as you were his only son by and passing concubine? Jagan retorted immediately, right, inwardly. I mean, like inside Jagan, when he heard the words like, my master supported me, when the white bearded man say this thing, Jagan internally thinks, without saying, using the words, he's using his thoughts. He got a thought, right? Yeah. Why can't master care of you? Because you are the master's own son, right? From a concubine. I mean, like from a random woman. He just slept with a random woman, right? Kind of a woman that he doesn't know much. And then that's how he got you, right? So actually you are his son. So why can't master care about you? Things like that. I mean, like, is this the reality? Is this a fact? No. It's a thought, it's a speculation. Jay can have these kind of weird thoughts sometimes, right? ගොඩේ ගතිය තියෙනවා ජේගන්ගේ කොච්චර right? I mean, like, unnecessary things come to his end, unnecessary doubts he have, right? Uh, these things can be seen, right? So the bearded man pointed to a corner in the pillared head. I mean, like, jagged man. So sorry, the bearded man, what I'm saying, right? The bearded man pointed to a corner. He showed Jagan a corner, right? In a pillared hole. I mean, like, a hole that is have pillars that have these columns, right? Pillared holes. Hole. He worked on those details of the ornament, and I had to move the block here. I mean, like, he worked on those details of ornament, and my master was working on these details in the sculpture of this block, and I have to move it here. The white bearded man shows to Jagan that pillared hole, right, and says these things. All that he possessed could be contained within the palm of his hand. The palm of his hand. All the possessions he had can be fitted or can be put onto his palm. In other words, he had very little. He doesn't have the master didn't have a lot of treasures. He had very little. He is almost a ascetic too. He's almost a hermit too. He had a hermit life. That's why he's used things. I mean, like, his properties, assets were minimal, right? So that's the idea. Within one's palm of one's hand. I cooked a little rice for him in the corner where you see the walls blackened. I mean, like, so bearded man shows the blackened walls, the black color walls, and say, there, that places I used to cook as well for me and my master, right? All day he sat here working on the image, or we went to a quarry to hew slabs. I mean, like, now he's explaining what they did with the master, right? Some days we were working on the image. Like, some days are spent entirely sculpting, entirely working on the image. Or on the other days they went to the quarry. What is a quarry? Quarry is a place you have stones, right? The people break stones. Gal Korea and the quarry means where they have stones. You have to go to those places just to break stones. From those stones, broken stones, big slabs only, you can make a sculpture, you can make a statue, right? So they took the hews, they took the axes, and went to find out slabs in the quarry. He never saw anyone except when some temple man came to order an image. So now in this place we didn't find any other people other than a person from the shrines, temples come here to order us a kind of order a statue from us, right? So very isolated kind of a place. That's the idea, right? Uh, why other people didn't come here? People were afraid to come here because of snakes. Ah, there you go. In this jungle, there are a lot of snakes. Like this, lot of serpents, right? So no wonder why people didn't like to come here. But my master loved them. Strange master. There was no problem for the master to live by side with snakes. So this tree was full of monkeys. You can see them now. I'll share the fruits of those trees with them. I mean, like, so he's introducing this, vegetation, right? And how his master was very concerned about these things, not to harm the wildlife, right? Uh, he enjoyed the company of snakes and monkeys and everything. Once there was even a cheetah in the undergrowth. I mean, like, this place had so many other kind of animals as well, not only monkeys and snakes. There was cheetah. There was a cheetah in undergrowth, means in this hiding somewhere around, right? In covered in these trees, in this thicket, there was a cheetah, right? We must not monopolize this earth. They won't harm us, he used to say. Like, we must not monopolize. We must not use this place to uh, our own advantage. We should not exploit. In other words, we must not monopolize this earth. They won't harm us. I mean, like, if we accept and respect the kind of wildlife, the wildlife will not disturb us. The snakes will not disturb us. The monkeys will not disturb us. The cheetah will not disturb us. Even we are living side by side with them, right? When he died one night, I sat at vigil by a small oil lamp and cremated his body beyond this pond, heaping on the dead wood and withered leaves. And one day, suddenly, we find the master died. And who was near the master? This man was near the master, the white bearded man, and he's the only one, right, who have arranged the dead body. I mean, like, in a way, right? He sat by this master dead body and vigiled, means stayed night. I mean, like, stayed awake all night. Vigiling means that. Vigiling means staying, guarding, without sleeping. So, in other words, he didn't sleep the night. He was awake all the night beside the master, lighting oil lamp, and cremated his body, means burned his body beyond the pond, heaping on the dead wood and withered leaves, with using leaves, dead leaves, and dried leaves and dried wood. He have burned. These Hindus have this habit, right, of just burning down the corpse. Once the corpse is burned down, the ashes is scattered, right? That's how they do their funeral rites. Not like us. When once we die, either we cremate or either we bury. But anyway, after the death, we have to just build a gravestone, and I mean, like in a we just bury it in a graveyard in a urn. Urn is kind of a vase like thing where we put the human ashes, right? And then we bury it. And once we bury, we make a kind of a grave, or we make a kind of epithet on the grave. right? Or some kind of a monument just to recall or commemorate the dead. But Hindus don't do those things. Hindus simply scatter the ash. That's it. There are no graveyards just to go and remember or just light a lamp uh, for Hindus, because according to their belief they just scatter it on the Ganga Namga Nadi, right? This human ashes. But here is the same way, right? Next day I woke off to the city and lived on the charity here and there. So once the master is dead, there's no one to make the sculptures. So next day, there's no business here. He can't leave. So the next day, I walked off to the city. I mean, the bearded man went to the city and lived on charity here and there. I mean, like living on charity, living on what other people give as food, right? In other ways, it's a kind of a not begging, but still living on alms, right? Just like the monks live sometimes. Some monks goes to place, house to house, just to live on charity, right? At a certain period. Uh, uh, Same way, this person has lived on charity here and there until I got the idea of my business. Until he got the idea of hair dyeing business, right? That's how the thing has come to life. That is all. That's it. I have nothing in my life to complain of now, but I was well off in those days. I mean, like, I have nothing in life to complain now means like I'm not complaining about life, that I don't have a wife, I don't have children, I don't have a place, right? I mean, like, I can't do the sculptures anymore. No, I'm not complaining about any of those things, right? And but I was well off in those days. In old days, well, my life is good, right? Even my life is not as good as those old days, but still I'm not complaining about life, tells the white bearded man to Jagan, right? But still brooding, he walked around in a small hall, peered into an alcove. Uh, I mean, like the white bearded man was just thinking for a while. He stopped and thought for a while, brooded, and then walked to a small hole and peered into me, looked into alcove. Write down if you don't know alcove. A small recess opening of a large room. I mean, like alcove means it's kind of a structure made in a wall, right? In some old days, there was this fashion in houses just to have alcoves. In the wall itself, you have a cupboard. You can put things in the cupboard that is made into the wall itself, right? So it's like, okay, into an alcove. They there used to be a god in the sanctum which had been stolen years before we came here. One night my master woke up me and said, "Let me make a new god for this temple, then it will flourish again." He had dreamt of a five-faced Gayatri to be seven to be sorry five-faced Gayatri to be seen nowhere else, the deity of radiance. So the thing was like one day the master, right, uh, Periyadore, had woke up from his dream, right? I mean, like, he has just woken this bearded man as well, and he was has suggested that he is going to make a statue of Gayatri, goddess Gayatri. You can Google, right? Goddess Gayatri is an important figure as like God Krishna, Vishnu, right? Other Vibhishan or just like Skanda or Ganesh. Gayatri is important as Lakshmi, right? A female goddess. Five face. There are five face to Gayatri. He had even hewn the slab for it and looked the first dens. I mean, like the master has cut a slab, cut a stone just to make this statue of Gayatri, and initially check whether the stone have any damages. If there are any damages, cracks or fissures in the stone, they can't make the uh, statue, so they have to discard it, right? So he have checked it. It used to be that yard somewhere, and the bearded man can remember that piece has to be somewhere in this place, right? In this yard somewhere. Let me look for it. Let me find it for you. Let me look it, said the bearded man. He became suddenly active. Suddenly, this person became active, peeped into every corner of the hall, went round to the backyard, where all oleanders and hibiscus flourished and bloomed widely. So he was looking for this, I mean, like that block of stone where the master has started to make the statue of Gayatri, which he haven't completed it. So he was looking everywhere in the backyard where this, I mean, like uh, around oleanders and hibiscus, right? Everyone, everything. He discovered a bamboo staff amid as a chump. Chump is a kind of a compact mass of, or chunk is called a chump, right? So he found a bamboo stick. Suddenly he took a bamboo stick. Bamboo staff. Staff means a stick. Ah, this is still here. I mean, like he is telling, like, this is still here. Seized and strode about. I mean, I took the bamboo stick and strode means walk around, looking like a statue of many thousand years antiquity. Looking like a statue of many, I mean, like just like the site itself is reminiscent of a past, right? I mean, like he took a bamboo stick and just went on searching for the, I mean, like the stone block where the master had started the sculpture of Gayatri, which he haven't finished, right? Uh, Watching him in this setting, it was difficult for Jagan as he mutely followed him. I mean, like looking at this white bearded man was little depressing, was difficult for Jagan as he mutely followed him. So he anyway followed the bearded man, right? Because bearded man know this place more than him. Jagan, for the first time, has been here, right? Uh, to believe that he was in the 20th century. I mean, like it looks like. Uh, I mean, like it's like a believe that he was in the 20th century means, yeah. Uh, it's like a novel experience for him. In other words, it's a kind of new thing for him. But still, it was difficult for Jagan. It's a kind of new experience, but still he was following, right? For us, it's 21st century. For them, it's the 20th century, right? The idea is kind of new to them. Sweetmeat vending, money and his son's problem seem to remote and unrelated to him. Now, for some reason, because he's happy here in other way, he has forgotten the sweetmeat vending. I mean, like his job of making sweetmeats, selling sweetmeats, counting the money, and his Smalley's problems, all are out of his head now. In other words, it's a kind of relaxing experience for Jagan, right? Problem seems to remote and unrelated to him. The edge of the reality itself was beginning to blur. This man from the previous millennium seemed to be the only object worth notice. I mean, like, okay, now for Jagan, this guy, the bearded man, seems like a man from the previous millennium. I mean, like, it's from, you know what is a millennium? Millennium is a year that, a period of time that have 1,000 years, right? Okay, if a man from the previous millennium means a man from the past, a man from the past. Here it's like imagine the Ice Age, right? You have seen a movie, right? A cartoon movie called Ice Age, right? It means why we call it Ice Age or Dark Age? Because they were in the past. They were back in time, right? So it was some many millenniums before, right? But here, for Jagan, this man, the bearded man, doesn't seem to fit the modern context, right? He seems to man from the past. Why? Because he doesn't have children, he doesn't have a wife, he doesn't have a house here, and he is only concerned about, I mean, like making statues and things are impressive to him. Other than that, any other thing is not that interesting for this person, right? He kind of lives in the past as if a person from the previous millennium, right? So that's the idea here. So Jagan was fascinated and looking to this person, right? A previous millennium seemed to be the only object worth notice. He looked like one possessed. I mean, like this guy looked like one possessed means under kind of a spell, under kind of a certain spell. I mean, like he's so passionate, he's searching things, right? He's looking for things. Uh, and Jagan was inspecting, not inspecting, actually surveilling and looking everything, these things very, in a very avid way, right? He pointed to the grassy spot under the palmyra tree and said, "This is where my master's body was burnt that day." Now the Jake, I mean like a bearded man, Spot pointed from his bamboo stick a place under the grassy spot, right under a palmyra tree, and says, "Here is my master's body was burnt." Right. uh, that day. I can remember that terrible night. He stood under the palmyra with his eyes shut for a moment, muttering some holy verse. I mean, this man stopped for a while under the palmyra tree and did some prayers, right? It said some holy words, that holy verse Jagan couldn't understand. He was kind of maybe remembering his master, right? We should not let the body deceive us as to the true nature of our being. There you go. And there was another philosophical kind of a statement, right? We should not let the body deceive us. We should not let the body cheat us or trick us as to the true nature of our being. I mean, in other words, we have to have conquered the soul, right? In the first line, can you remember the punchline? In other words, that's how we control the body. I mean, like we should not fall under the spell of body. If the body controls us, we are losing our soul, right? That's maybe the idea of this, right? One is not really bone and meat. Yeah, a person, a life is not bone and meat. In other words, right? Khandai badai tibbata minihek wenne naha, right? That's the idea. I mean, like flesh and blood doesn't make a man, right? Provided it, he declared, as if with a sudden frenzy, beat down every bush in his bamboo stick, startling a variety of creatures, lizards, chameleons, birds, and frogs, which lived and undisturbed for years in the garden shelter. Suddenly, the bearded man, as if possessed, as if under some kind of a spell, right, using his bamboo stick, right? He had a bamboo stick, we remember, right? And just started hitting, right, the ground with the bamboo stick as if cleaning, right? When you have a knife, you use that too sometimes when the trees are grown, just to cut it, right? Or a you sickle, if you have a sickle in your hand, or a scythe, right, you can cut them up. Or if you have axe, you can chop them off, right? So but here he doesn't have anything, he only have the bamboo stick, so he is wavering it, right, hitting the plants, right, with the bamboo stick as if to clean the ground a little bit, as if a madman, right, in a kind of frenzy. Then what happened? Startling means confusing. Who? In this thicket, in these thorny bushes, right? There are these lizards, chameleons, katus, right? And lizards are same thing. And birds and frogs which have lived undisturbed for years in this green shelter. Now these animals are a little confused, like what is happening on, right? Who is hitting us, right? So as if they were a little disturbed. He seemed to enjoy their discomfiture. He inhaled noisily with relish the smell of the crushed greenery. I mean, like, uh, this man did this thing. I mean, like, the bearded man cleaned the way as if he enjoyed his cleaning, right? He didn't mind the habitats of the animals were disturbed. He didn't care about the discomfort of the animals, right? He cleaned the place with his bamboo stick and inhaled noisily. And when the green trees or plants are crushed, you get this kind of a smell, right? Certain plants, when they crush, you can smell a kind of a certain smell, right? A strong, pungent kind of a acid like smell, right? So he felt that smell when he crushed the plants. He said, "I am sure the cobra that lives here must have quietly sit away when we came. That uncanny, they are uncanny in their habits, very alert and watchful," said the man, right? He said, like, I'm very sure when I came here, the cobra, the snakes lived here must have quietly slipped away, have left the place. I'm very sure the snakes are gone from here, because when the snakes hear the vibration, when we just place our feet in the ground, there's a kind of vibration, right? Even we don't know it, the ground shakes a little bit, there's a small sound. And these snakes and these lizards and these creatures sometimes are very attentive to these kind of noises, right? They can feel that thing, they can feel it from their body, they can feel it from their scales, they can feel it. So what happens is they slowly immediately leave the place, because they don't like to encounter humans, right? So he knows this. So he says this, right? Where they are uncanny means kind of a strange, kind of weird, uncanny in their habits. So these animals have their own habits, right? Very alert and watchful. Chipped off block of stones and odd ends of the sculptured pieces came to view beneath the weeds. Wow. Now what happened now when the man just using the bamboo sticks and cleaning the weeds suddenly, right? This cleaning the trees suddenly hitting it. What happened? The chip of blocks of stone, a cut piece of stone and odd ends with kind of a different ends, right? I mean, like it's not totally refined, but the shape came up of a sculptural piece of came to view beneath the weeds. Something very well sculptured can be seen. I mean, some stone with some shape could be partially seen, right, when the weeds are taken off. He pointed his staff at them, explaining. Now the bearded man pointed his staff or pointed his bamboo stick to them, to the sculpture, explaining, this was the pedestal of Vishnu, meant for some temple. Those are arms of Saraswati, the goddess of learning. Right, so he was pointing certain things here. This is the pedestal. This shape is the pedestal, the supporting thing, right? You know, to support a statue, you have to have a pedestal, kind of a block, square or rectangle where the statue stands. That's a pedestal. So, and some arms of Saraswati also could be seen from this place. So he was pointing what is what to Jagan, right? Uh, They could not be used because of a slight crack in the stone. So bearded man say this statue, I mean like this pedestal cannot be used to that statue because this pedestal has a small crack. So when there's a crack, we have to, reject the piece. That's the danger, right? Okay, imagine you are doing some stone sculpting. You have entirely built the nice face, a very attractive face, very attractive body, and but by the process sometime they, by accident, if you chipped a little bit of the stone, like if you damage the stone, if you crack the stone by accident a little bit, there's no purpose in making the statue, right? It's done, like it's destroyed. All the labor is useless. All the effort you put is useless. You have to throw it away. That's the risk of doing stone sculpture there those days, right? See how careful a man should be, right? It can't be, you can't hurry up with those things. You have to be extra careful. So that's what he says. Like, we couldn't use this pedestal for Vishnu because it was cracked, so we have to throw it away, right? Uh, the my master got so upset when he noticed the defect that he flung it through the door and remained speechless for 3 days. There you go. Now his master Chennadore's master Periyadore got very upset when he saw the crack here, when he saw the damage here in this pedestal. He was so upset. He threw it, flung it means threw it out of the door, right? So it has fallen somewhere here and was speechless, was not talking for 3 days. See the distress, see the upset, see the kind of a despondency, hopelessness of these people when they when something like this happens, right? So very risky business at the same time, right? uh, Remained speechless for 3 days. At such moments, I used to stay away from him, shielding myself behind the trunk of a tamarind tree. When master is upset, when my master is not talking, I'm not going to just, doing jokes or, tempt him to talk. I am also just speechless. Then I also don't talk. So I hide myself behind that trunk of tamarind tree. Hiding means shielding. Shielding means covering myself. Tamarind, what is tamarind? I live in tamarind. Siembala, right? Tamarind tree. When the mood passed, he would call me. When the master is okay, after some time, after his sadness is gone, right? He would call me. But where is that other block? Where is it? The 2 foot square one. I mean, like Now the bearded man is looking for the other part of the statue. I mean, like other, there's another statue that he was searching. It's not here. He was searching like, where is the other part? Where is it? Right? The 2 foot square one. The 2 foot square one. You know what is a foot square, right? It's like 1 feet long, 1 feet width, and a 1 feet uh, tall. It's like a foot square. So it's a 2 foot square. It means like 2 feet long, 2 feet wide, 2 feet high, right? So he is looking for this 2 foot square, and it could not have grown limbs and walked off, although as if like he's watching it, he's looking for this, and can a statue walk? Right? We know it can't, right? Now it's not there anyway, right? So that's why he's very concerned about it. So he was like wondering like මේ statue එකට කකුල් ඇවිල්ලා ඇවිදලා ගියාදවත් කියලා. He can't find out. He's searching all the place, right? Image perfect cannot be held down on his pedestal. I always remember the story of dancing figure Nataraj, which was so perfect that it began a cosmic dance and the town itself shook as if in an earthquake had rocked it until a small finger of the figure was chipped off. So, I mean, like, now there's another dimension to this sculpting. So, at a certain time, it is story, right? The bearded man says, I always remember a story of the dancing figure of Nataraj. Some man, right? Some sculptor has uh, made a figure, a statue of Nataraj. You know who's Nataraj, right? In your certain toolboxes, right? The you can see Nataraj, right? You know the dancing god, right? He's the god of dancing. He's the god of arts, in other words, right? So Nataraj has this. When a nice statue of Nataraj was made, a perfect 100% perfect statue of Nataraj was made, it began a cosmic dance itself, right? I mean, like when this perfect statue was made, something happened in the town, right? Some things were changed in the town, as if the god was dancing, have started dancing. Again, in other words, like there was a belief, right? If the statue is perfect, too perfect, things start to happen where the statue is around, right? It's a kind of a belief. Imagine you made a perfect Vishnu statue. I mean, like certain things start to happen, right? Certain differences you will notice. The lifestyle is change, you will notice. Maybe sudden rain, sudden shake, earthquakes, little bit of earthquake, sudden little bit of a movement of the ground, sudden rain, unexpected tree growth. You may sometimes maybe right the crops will flourish, right? Things like that happen suddenly. So in the same way, when this perfect Nataraj statue was made, so because Nataraj is dancing, right? Actually, this dancing symbolizes the cosmic dancing. නටරාජ් කියන මේ මූර්තියේ දෙවියොන්ගේ පදනම තමයි මුළු විශ්වයම නැටුමක් කියන එක. Right? I mean, like, you may ask, like, how is it possible? Think the sun comes in the morning and sun sets. The night comes, the moon comes, and the moon goes down. That's a dance itself, right? Sun coming up and moon coming. Sun going down and the moon is rising. It's a circle. That's a dance. Can't you see the dance there? When the seasons, the 4 seasons in the world, weather is a dance. Sometimes it comes and sometimes it goes. And the rain is a circle. It's a dance in itself. The clouds, the water evaporates and become dense, and that's how the cloud makes. When the clouds are heavy, the water comes down as rain and again fills the place and again evaporates, and that's a circle. I mean, everything is a circle round, as if it's a dance. So that's why it's Nataraj, right? All that symbolization is about if everything is a dance, it's like cosmic dance. It's like we call Maya, right? Of this world. So, I mean, like when the perfect statue was made, I mean, like things started to dance in itself, right? So what happened? There you go, shock as if an earthquake had rocked it, right? There were kind of cosmic dance. By now, the statue maker knew there's something wrong with this statue. That's why these all these differences are, kind of can be seen. Now, I mean, like, අමුතු අමුතු දේවල් වෙනවා. like භූත භූත දේවල් වෙන්න ගද්දි ටක් ගාලා ස්කල්ප්චර් තියෙනවා. මේ ස්ටැචු එකේ මොකක් හරි අවුලක් තමයි මේ. මේක too perfect. මේක ලස්සන වැඩි. ඒකත් එක්ක ආත්මික වෙලා ලෝකෙම. ලෝකෙම ස්ටැචු එකත් එක්ක නටන්න ගන්නවා වගේ අදහසක්. So what did the sculptor do? Immediately chipped off a figure, right? A small finger from the Nataraj dancing figure. He cut off a little small part of it. I mean, it made imperfect, right? ඒ කියන්නේ ඒ පිරිපුන් ස්ටැචු එක පොඩ්ඩක් ඩැමේජ් කරා. ඒක කියන්නේ අපි සිංහලෙන් කියන අපරිපූර්ණනේ. I mean, like something like that. Then what happened? That thing goes away. Everything becomes normal, right? The surroundings stop dancing, right? So because it's not perfect anymore. So that's the idea here. Chipped off. We always do it. No one notices it. I mean, like whenever we make a perfect statue, Chennadori says, Little Master says, whenever my master makes a perfect statue, we damage it a little bit to stop this cosmic dance, to stop these crazy things happen. We make it little imperfect by chipping off somewhere. No one notices it. No one notices it, right? But we always create a small flaw in every image. It's for safety that every image we make, we do a small damage. It's for safety. If for safety of people, safety of the temple is safety. Because if it's too perfect, it can dance in its own, right? That's the idea. He went on talking and Jagan listened again. And when these things are told to Jagan, Jagan is agape. Is that so? Right? Something like that, right? Jagan listened with the gape as if a new world has flashed onto view, as if a new kind of knowledge, new world came into him. He was surprised, totally surprised. He was under a charm. Like Jagan is like agape. He was just paying attention to what this man is saying, right? He suddenly realized how narrow his whole existence has been. I mean, suddenly Jagan realized, right, his entire existence, like his entire life is so small. I mean, in other words, what was I doing so far in my life? How small I am. See, this is something strange. This is something interesting, right? So Jagan is fascinated. That's the idea here, right?